Hey, Christy, One Love Fellowship for Followers of Christ. How y'all doing tonight? I've had a rough week, and it's resulted in me apparently saying some things I shouldn't have said, posting some things maybe I shouldn't have posted. Although to be completely honest, it's almost like when I channel that energy, like when it's projected onto me and it comes through me, and for whatever reason I feel compelled to put it out there. I'm not excusing it at all. It disgusts me. But like in the moment when it happens, it's hard to describe it, but it's like as soon as it's done, and I have no attachment to it. It's almost like it's coming through me, but it's not coming from me. Um, so I don't know, take that for what it's worth, but a lot of times I feel like people get upset over things that I post, and half the time I don't even remember what I posted until I go back and see it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I can see how that could upset you, but like, why are you secretly stalking me instead of just talking to me directly? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even know you were reading my posts. Pretty sure I had your accounts blocked. That means you made fake accounts just so you could see what I had to say. And it's like, if you want to know what I have to say, why don't you come talk to me directly? Why do you stalk me in cyberspace? But anyway, that's fine. As my mom would say, that's neither here nor there. I went to church tonight. Love it. Like, honestly, not to sound like a total nerd, but it's honestly the highlight of my week right now. I'm so excited because I don't do anything social. I hardly get out of the house. Even when I do go out and go travel and stuff, like, it's just me and Loki. We meet random strangers in passing here and there at a dog park or rest stop or some national monument or whatever. But we don't tend to make any lasting connections, unfortunately. So it's nice to go back to a place and see familiar faces and maybe have a chance to get to know people. That's really cool. I did the young lady who first welcomed me into the church when I visited the first time 2 weeks ago. She came and got me again because apparently in this particular church, which is extremely conservative, it's an Orthodox faith, and it's quite a bit more, I guess traditional is the word. I don't even really like traditional per se, because what's traditional? It's just based on tradition, and people make up traditions all the time. But it's a bit more involved than I'm used to. It, like, based on how I was raised, because even though my family originated Catholic, by the time I came along, like, I wasn't even allowed to go to mass with my Catholic friend. So I never got to actually, like, attend, like an incense offering ceremony or anything like that. So it's like, to me, it's amazing. I love it. I'm excited. I can't wait to go back first thing in the morning. Hope I sleep well tonight and don't sleep through it. That'd be great. Anyway, apparently, part of their, I guess, like, doctrine, or part of their, like, rules or whatever, is that males males sit on the left side of the chapel, and females sit on the right. Females and children sit on the right side, so that they, like, worship separately. Which, I mean, it actually does kind of make sense. Like, you're there to focus on the message, so it's like you don't necessarily want to be a distraction to each other, especially single men and single women. Like, I get it, but like, I wasn't aware of that when I first went there, and so my instinct was to take a seat on the left side towards the back. It didn't even occur to me until this evening, right around the time she and another woman both came and sat near me for a few moments and talked to me or whatever. And then it's like I looked around and realized that, like, only men were on the side I was on and all the women were on the other side, and it just hadn't even occurred to me. But that's the thing, like, that's a theme throughout my life that I don't realize that I'm doing. I don't realize that I'm just like naturally migrating towards what's typically considered masculine, like what's typically considered for men, for males. Like I just 5'11", I just naturally tend to migrate towards that. And it's not intentional, and it's not even necessarily something that I wanted to do or be. It's just how I am. And of course I asked her when I came over to, she was going to the bathroom, and she was like, "You can come sit with me over here when I'm going to the bathroom. I'll be back." And it's like nobody ever said to me like, "You're not supposed to sit here," which I appreciate. I appreciate that they were never like, "You can't be in here like this." You know what I mean? Like they're very polite and welcoming, and gently like letting me know like this is how it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like I really appreciate that. But I came and I sat with her, and I said, "Is this supposed to be men on the left and women on the right?" And she was like, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize." And I said, "I'm non-binary, and so I tend to, if until women welcome me, like until females, feminines welcome me into their fold, like I tend to migrate towards men. Like it's not intentional." And she nodded politely but kind of nervously, and I can feel her tense up. Like I felt her energy like, and she barely like even looked my direction for a little while after that. And it was, we were having the service, so I didn't want to make a big deal about it, but I definitely realized that I had struck a chord, even probably by using that term. And being that it's a very conservative church, I kind of just like sat there and prayed about it a little bit, and I prayed that God would give me the opportunity to speak to her, and that God would soften her heart and open her mind to what I had to say about it. And so a little while later, when there was a bit of a break and we were able to talk a little bit, I said, I kind of feel like maybe I upset you a little bit when I told you that I'm non-binary. And I said, if it's okay with you, I would like to have the opportunity to explain to you what that means to me. And, she was polite about it, and, almost even apologetic. And I didn't want her to even try to like protest about it, because she's entitled to her feelings. Like I don't judge. I don't judge people for having the feelings that they have. Like people are entitled to feel how they feel. If something makes them uncomfortable, like you can't, just like no one should be able to judge you for being the way you are. Like it's equally as wrong to say, "Well, you're wrong for feeling uncomfortable because I'm the way I am." Like that's a natural state of them feeling that way as well. And even if it's something that they've been taught, you know what I mean? Like even if one thing comes naturally and another thing is more like sort of indoctrinated or ingrained into them, either way it doesn't matter. Like that's, you know what I mean, that's how they feel. Like you can't, that's saying that someone's wrong for being uncomfortable with something is like saying that person's wrong. And so how are you going to say, "I'm not wrong for being gay," or "I'm not wrong for being non-binary," or "I'm not wrong for being whatever, I was born this way, but you're wrong for feeling uncomfortable about it." Like to me, that's the ultimate hypocrisy. So it's not that I embrace people's biases or bigotry per se. It's that I accept that that's how they feel, and I just want to clarify and hopefully start a dialogue so that maybe they can understand a little bit better, because a lot of times I think that those reactions are based on a false narrative that they've been taught, or either that or a negative interaction they've had with someone who fits that description, and they've never had the opportunity to interact with someone who maybe is a better representative, if that makes sense. So anyway, I just told her, and this is how I personally feel about it, how I experience being non-binary, what being non-binary means to me, is that I've been aware since early childhood that I existed in masculine form in previous incarnations, in previous lifetimes. Definitely in my last 4 lifetimes before this lifetime, but I honestly feel, at least for the last 2 millennia, I do believe that I probably was in feminine form originally, and then came to have the masculine experience as a feminine and masculine form because we needed a new type of man to see the world from a different perspective. But then after experiencing the world in masculine form for at least 2 millennia, for this to be my first incarnation in feminine form after that many lifetimes in masculine form, like, it leaves a mark on your psyche. You know what I mean? Like, your soul remembers, your soul knows. Your mind remembers, your mind knows. So even though, yes, biologically I am female, there's a lot energetically and just like intellectually and just like psychically, I guess, that's like ingrained in me that defaults to the masculine. And so I do tend to be more comfortable in my masculine energy. I do tend to be more attracted to masculine activities and things that are traditionally more masculine, 1111 in nature. Like, I would much rather work on a car than clean a house. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, get enough energy in me, catch me on a good day, and I will clean the house like nobody's business. But I actually feel more in touch with my femininity when I'm doing masculine things, like chopping wood. I might not be as good at it as a masculine would be, but there's something about it. There's something about engaging in the 1144, something about engaging in those activities that actually gets me in touch with my femininity even more so than attempting to force myself to be girly. So that's just a sidebar. But to me, how I experience being non-binary and why I didn't even know to use that term until my own child came out to me is because I was just aware that this is who I am. I wasn't necessarily fully aware that others had the same experience or would even understand my experience if I explained it to them. But I understood from a very young age that I basically am a boy in a girl body. But I'm not a boy in a girl body because the soul inside of me is non-binary. Like, it doesn't have a gender. It's essentially both genders because it experiences life through the lens of whatever gendered form it incarnates into, you know? But those incarnations leave a mark. And so when you first transition to a different form, you know, there's going to be like, not backlash. The word that came to me was backlash, but I don't even want to call it backlash. There's going to be like lingering traits, you know, that you carry over with you into your new incarnation, even though you're in a different form. Just like how I am aware that I was African in my last lifetime. I was a black man and I experienced life as a black man, and that has informed a lot of what I find attractive in this lifetime, what I find myself attracted to, people, places, things, cultures, music, food even. Although honestly, like, I'm actually not all that, like, apparently I was Italian in some life at some point, because I still prefer Italian food, but whatever. No offense to any other cuisine, it's just, that's the one culture's cuisine that I pretty much will like any dish from that culture that you put in front of me. Like, other cultures' cuisines, there are specific things that I like, but I'm not necessarily like if you take me to a Mexican restaurant or a Chinese restaurant or like whatever cultural restaurant, like, there are certain things that I'll eat that I'll enjoy. But like, I'm not necessarily going to be someone who's want to sample like everything on the menu because I'm just like, I don't know, kind of picky like that. Anyway, that's not important. Sorry for babbling. But yeah, to me, I get that everyone's experience is different, and some people consider being non-binary to being literally gender neutral. Like, they don't want to identify as masculine or feminine. They don't want, some people want to bind their breasts. They don't want to embrace, if they're in feminine form, they don't want to embrace their feminine form. Some people are in masculine, like, some people want to look very androgynous. Like, people experience it differently, and I experience it differently at different times. Like, sometimes I'm in more of like boy mode, and sometimes, I feel like being more feminine. But ultimately, to me, all that it means is it means that I recognize there's an aspect about me that sets me apart and makes me a little bit different from the traditional female, in that my brain kind of defaults to boy mode. And it requires effort for me to embrace my femininity. And because I didn't have proper feminine role models, and this is not a stab at my family at all. Love my family, especially the ones that have already crossed over, you know what I mean? Like, we've made our peace and we're cool. But the truth of the matter is, and they'll admit this as well, is that the feminines in my life, for all of their good qualities, for all of their strength, for everything that they taught me about, being strong and independent and not falling into the same traps that they necessarily fell into regarding men and regarding relationships with men. The truth of the matter is that a lot of the females I was looking up to as role models were in masculine energy. And if they weren't in masculine energy, then they were in some form of distorted feminine energy. So either way, I wasn't seeing like true divine femininity being modeled to me. And I wasn't getting taught how to care for myself and, do you know what I mean? Like, present myself, or even prepare myself necessarily for like true divine femininity. And it's not that I don't want to, I genuinely want to embrace that. Like, I desire to embrace that, because me personally, again, with my experience of it, it's that 1717. It's important. It's important to have this experience. It's important to experience life in feminine form, life as essentially a masculine soul, so to speak, emerging as feminine for the first time, at least in a long time, and what that journey entails, how I shape myself into the divine feminine that I'm ultimately meant to be, not just throughout this lifetime, but throughout future incarnations. Because from what I understand, based on my experience, is that because I incarnated as a masculine for a period of time previously, I will now incarnate as a feminine for a period of time moving forward. And so with every incarnation, it will get easier and easier, and it will come more naturally and more naturally and more naturally, until right around towards the end, when I'm just, I'm a girly girl like everyone else. And then it's going to flip, and I'm going to come back as a masculine, and we're going to do it all over again from the opposite perspective. Like, that's my experience. So to me, non-binary is not a dirty word. Like, it's not a derogatory term. And no offense to anyone else who maybe experiences non-binaryism differently, or even people who are trans. Like, I think that the trans experience is an important experience as well. Technically, they say that non-binary falls under the trans umbrella. I personally feel like trans falls under the non-binary umbrella, but semantics. I don't feel the need to transition my body, to change my body, to alter my body at all. When I was younger, there were times when I, like, as a small child especially, when I was like, I just wish I was a boy, because life just seems so much easier for boys, like, boys seem to have everything, they seem to run everything, they seem to get everything, they can do everything. Girls, there were so many expectations placed upon us, you know what I mean? It was like, well, you are the one that came out with a vagina, so you don't get to go ride bikes and, climb trees and run and play. You don't get to do any of that stuff. You got to learn how to cook and clean and care for the elderly and take care of children and, be everyone's caretaker. Like, it was frustrating growing up with vagina in the 80s and 90s. But ultimately, I never wanted to be boy. I was always grateful for being a female, grateful for being in feminine form. And I am so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that I have a womb, that I can carry life, that I can like conceive and gestate and birth life with my body. That to me is probably the penultimate experience that I wanted to have in this lifetime, was motherhood. And you can't fully experience motherhood. Again, this is not to offend anyone, but like, even if you transition from male to female, I mean, technically you can be someone's mother, but you're not going to get the full experience of motherhood because you weren't born equipped for that. And I understand that there are scientists who are apparently trying to circumvent nature, because scientists always think that they should correct God's mistakes, like, whatever.